there. All right, so just a quick note, we are recording this, and it will be placed at the training webinar link. I sent that link the other day in the update email, and then we've also done extensive updates to our website, and under the training opportunities page, I believe it's the last one, I think, on our website, the link is there as well. So this is Connie Bean, and I have Chris Lemon, Eric Tincher, and Sue Gross-Didier in the room with us here in Topeka. And we are happy to have you on the phone this morning to run over some adult ed final reporting changes. I do want to clarify that we've significantly reduced the redundancy and the amount of reporting that we are having you do. We actually looked at all of the reporting forms that had been required, and a lot of those were redundant, and we found that we could really condense things and I think make it easier for you. And we've actually got some feedback from one of the programs. We're going to do a couple other just small updates color-wise to the forms to make sure they're really readable. And then those are on our website right now, but they will be reposted later today with just a couple edits. And so nothing real significant, but those are out there as well. And then I also just wanted to share just a couple things about the Kansas Adult Ed and data and that type of thing. Number one, we keep in mind that we have reduced this reporting. I think our president got some feedback from somewhere that we've increased the reporting for adult ed, and any increase has been with the requirement of the federal regs. And so I know a lot of you are not in love with time and effort reporting, and my apologies, and I am right there with you. We have no choice. This should have been reported and collected by this office in the past, and so we are trying to make that correction so that we are where we need to be when OCTAE comes next month. So thank you again for all your efforts with time and effort reporting, and for Eric, everything he's done to coordinate with everyone. And then the other federal requirement is the follow-up, and I know people aren't in love with that either. That's a new federal requirement through the WIOA regs that we have no choice over. So those are definitely two things that have to be reported that are not optional and not something that we just thought up that would be fun. A couple other things on our website. You will also find, and I think it's up there now, they posted this morning, some AOK resources. There's the funding document that explains the GED proviso, the accelerator, how AO funding is sent out. So you'll see that document, as well as a AO pathway application. And so we really want to work on it with people who are interested in either starting to deliver that co-taught instruction or expanding what you're doing. We sent back $700,000 this year to the legislature that funds that particular bucket of money. So we really want to see that expanded. And on that same note, I know everyone's out there still entering data up until August 13th. A reminder, then we will shut it down for a week and look at discrepancies and inconsistencies, and then it will be open again from August 20th to 31st. And I mention that because at first glance at Pablo today, we're down about 500 students, right around probably 400 students. So the good thing is we are down students, however, you are serving them at a higher level of success. The statewide average MSG is 61.5%. And if I break that out, the ESL is performing at almost 65% MSG gain, and adult ed students are over 59%. So the concern is, though, that we're we're down 400 students. So we'll be talking about this again in our meeting in a couple weeks, but I know a lot of you are still entering data. So that being said, I just wanted to share that out there. So with that, I think that's all of the updates. Maybe the last one that you may not have caught when I sent out your grant award notice. In later October, we will be bringing in some national experts to deliver team teaching training. And so there's more on that to come. But we're excited about that as well as an opportunity to get your faculty basically in a higher level of team teaching training than what we've provided in the past. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to get started here.
Good morning, everyone. So we wanted to talk a little bit about our final reporting documents, things that we're expecting this year that is a little different than last year. Like Connie said, we're trying to decrease some of the reporting we had. You know, we're eliminating submitting a Q4 report and then a final report, which should be more or less the same thing. And now we're combining that into basically the three main final reporting documents. So we are requesting a final adult education budget from you guys. As you guys are aware, you don't have to submit a budget modification to us unless it's greater than 10% of your funding stream. So if you're moving funds from a line item that's greater than 10% of your federal award, you would have to submit that to us. You would have to submit that to us for approval for a budget modification. But if you've done things that you didn't have to submit for approval, we would still like to be aware of what your final expenditures were on your adult ed budget. That way we can compare things with your statement of expenditures. Just 1 second. I'm going to place everyone on mute, and then when we're to the question portion, I will unmute everyone. That way we reduce the feedback. Okay, so I have muted everyone. I promise to unmute everyone when we get to the point for asking questions. So we're going to ask for a new adult education budget. We're going to ask for a year-to-date statement of expenditures. That's something that we've decreased as well. We're only asking for that 3 times a year. We're going to talk in a minute for next year. Dates will change slightly for that. The new data validation checklist, which we've already received some feedback from you guys. So we're going to make some minor edits that mostly are stylistic. This should be much more in line with the way Pablo is currently functioning, accounting for periods of participation, accounting for auto exit procedures in Pablo, and incorporating some of those new things. But overall, I think the new DVC is a lot shorter than the old one was. And is a way just for you to engage with your data, make sure that you're fixing any data discrepancies or errors that pop up before you submit that document to us. And then I'll let Eric talk for a minute about time and effort reporting.
I just want to follow up with what Connie said earlier. Just thank you everyone for working with us. We know it's something new and we're just all working together, hopefully rowing in the same direction. I know some of you have reached out to me personally and have some questions. I'm going to get with Chris later today. It's just been super crazy busy here, and we'll get back with those of you individually. But what's shown there on the slide, again, for time and effort, when we do our semi-annual certification, those are people who are paid with one funding stream, so 100% one funding stream. Then people who work January 1st through June 30, your final report, you need to do a semi-annual certification. If you're paid with multiple funding streams, then we're doing a monthly PAR. So we can go into more detail of that when we have our directors meeting.
And also, if you feel like you've over-reported, because maybe you reported somebody on a PAR and they ended up just being a time and effort where you report 2 times a year, don't worry about it. We would rather have people not intentionally over-report, but if you accidentally did, that's cool, because more is better.
Yep.
We think.
And I'll keep working with you all individually. It's going good.
Thank you. One thing that we're changing a little bit now, this mirrors what we're doing on the other side of the house, something that Connie's been doing with Perkins for a while. We now have assigned reporting liaisons to each individual. So questions about programmatic things, about Pablo, those will still come to Connie or myself. Questions about professional development will still come to Eric. But what we're doing is we're assigning each program a person to submit reports to. I've sent out this email, or I've sent out the PowerPoint in email, so you guys should have these. We can hand it out again at our meeting, July 31st, or 30th and 31st. And what we would like to do with this is make it a little bit easier for us to keep track of reports, give you guys someone so you know who you're notifying. What we would like you to do is submit your reports. Still use that adultedreports@ksbor.org email, but also CC your reporting liaison. The reason we like to do that is that Adult Ed Reports email is great for you guys to have a single place to submit things, but when we're out of the office, we can't check it. So if you're submitting things that you have questions about, or you want to make sure that we've got it and you maybe need a response back on something, we need to have that in our email inbox so that we can check that when we're off site and we can try to provide the best experience for you guys. So for next year, for statement of expenditures, we're going to change. We tried to do the December 1st, March 1st with a year-to-date expenditure. The problem with that is we didn't really specify a cutoff date for you guys. So every program was doing things a little bit differently. I know it caused some confusion with you guys and your business offices. So what we're doing is we're trying to simplify that. We're still using the same three submissions for statements of expenditures, but what we're doing is we're changing the dates a little bit. So a fall statement of expenditures will be due October 15th, and that will cover the first quarter. Your spring statement of expenditures is due April 15th, and that will cover quarters 1 through 3. And then your final statement of expenditures will be due in August with the rest of the final reports, and that will cover the full year. Those will be submitted to Adult Ed Reports. And your reporting liaison, we've recreated the forms, updated them a little bit. They should have pretty good instructions, but as always, you can call or email with questions you might have. We're also changing our adult education budget form a little bit to eliminate the number of documents, the number of pieces of paper that are floating around. This will be used for all your budget submissions. So it will be for your regular adult ed, it'll be for IELCE. You will account for your professional development leadership grants on that sheet. The same sheet will be used for your initial budgets, your modifications, your final budgets. For your FY19 budgets, we will be placing your original budget into that document and sending it back to you so you have it. So don't worry about resubmitting those. And then, again, those will be submitted to Adult Ed Reports and your reporting liaison. As always, PD questions to Eric. Everything else, Connie or myself. Looking at the new budget form, it's a little difficult to see here, but it's available on our website, and we can send it out by email as well. But what we're doing is we're using the 3 funding streams are still there, but we have a space for your initial budget, any modifications you might have, and your final budget. The color coding is kind of for our benefit as well as your own if you're trying to keep track of things. But what we'll do is we'll send you back this with your initial budget. If you have a modification, you would insert the date and you would put the new amounts in the modification section. If you do multiple modifications, you'll just add a column to the right of the previous modification, and you can do that as many times as you would need to. In adult ed, we don't do nearly as many budget modifications as some of our other programs, but we'll account for those. If you didn't have a modification during the year, you would leave it blank, and then for your final reporting, you would just put your final amounts in that last column. What we've also done is we've combined some line items. In years past, we had split out salaries and withholding and benefits, and a lot of the budget modifications we were seeing were moving money from salaries to benefits, or moving money from benefits to salaries. It's all kind of the same. Salaries and benefits are tied together. So what we've done is we've combined those, so those are just one line now. So that should hopefully decrease further the need for you guys to submit those modifications, just make things on the budget side a little bit easier. We've also taken off a couple things. We've changed some things to update for new regs. Capital outlay items are no longer items that are $500 or more. That was increased a couple years ago to $5,000 or more. If you guys intend to make capital outlay purchases, you'll definitely need to check with us first. I'm not sure there's any single item adult ed would use that should be $5,000 or more. And then there will be signature lines in the bottom of the form. That way there's a place for you and a fiscal agent at your institution or your president to sign it, and then there's a place for Connie to sign it as well. That way we all know that we've signed off on it. One thing on the budget forms that I did want to bring up, we need someone at your institution who can commit college funds to sign the budget. So that's usually your fiscal officer or the president, or anyone who's been designated as such. You can't sign in both spots. You can't sign it, and you can't have your administrative assistant sign it because of the way adult ed functions, and we require the local match. We need someone at the institution who can sign that saying the college is committed to provide these local match funds. So if you have any questions on that, as always, just let us know. The data validation checklist, like I said earlier, we hope that it's simplified. We're trying to align with newer reporting requirements, and it's also a bit shorter than the previous one. As I said, it's not a final product. We're trying to make the best thing that we can for you guys that accomplishes. We're trying to go between two goals here. We're trying to do what we need for our purposes, but also make it as useful as possible for you guys. So we're trying to meet somewhere in the middle there. So if you have suggestions on this, let me know. If there are things that aren't working, don't look right, just let us know. We can always update this, and it's not going to affect, we're not going to, if we make minor changes, we're not going to make everyone go back and redo it. We'll just treat this as a living document that helps everybody engage with their data, identify problems, and address those so that we have the best quality data possible, so that when we're reporting to the board, the TEA, we're reporting to the feds, the legislature, the state workforce board, we know that the data we're giving them is the best that we can have. Time and effort again. Eric really wants to hammer this in for you guys.
I forgot that was on there twice. I apologize. I'm not sure what else needs to be said because it sums it up right there on that slide. Again, if you're 100% paid by one funding stream, you're going to do a semi-annual certification, which is due here in August. So otherwise, what was said earlier with monthly PARs, just happy to work with you, and everybody's doing a great job.
And I think one thing to reiterate that's here is to focus on that second bullet. We've had a couple questions, I know, come in about individuals who are on vacation and they can't sign their their activity report, they can't sign their semi-annual certification, you can have a supervisor sign that for an employee.
Yes.
As long as they have first-hand knowledge of the work performed. So if you're supervising someone and you know that they performed X amount of work for adult ed or X amount of work for something else or 100%, whatever it is, you can sign that. And that is okay by federal regs.
Yep.
You can submit that even if you can't get that personal signature from someone.
Yep, perfect. There's the form.
And here is a good example of a semi-annual certification. Again, a little bit difficult to read, but we can send this out to everyone. That way you can have an example. Yeah, as often happens, we're required to do this, but there's not a required form we have to use. We're not requiring you to use a form. There are a couple things that need to be on the form, which you can see from here. But if you have something your institution uses, if you want to create something different, that's fine, as long as we have the base information that we need for the time and effort reporting.
Also, one thing I might add, we had a federal Perkins audit 3 years ago, and as a result of that, they made some suggestions about a reporting budget form. And so we incorporated those suggestions, and which were good, and updated what we were doing. So I'm going to throw out the caveat that it's possible that when they come in August, they may say, okay, so that looks okay, but here's maybe what we want to see, or here's a suggestion, and here's why, and so on. So I want to throw that out because it's possible once they review what we're doing, and we want their input. And a lot of times they will share best practices from other states. So it's possible that we may have to come back and tweak something. I can't tell you that I really expect that to happen. But we don't have any idea. And we are all guinea pigs that are getting monitored this year because they haven't done any WIOA monitoring until this year. So that's probably a good thing for all of us that are on the list this year. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you, Connie. That's a great point. The slide here talks about the PARs, which we've mentioned earlier in the meeting. Again, those are paid with, if an employee is paid with multiple funding streams. We're doing a monthly PAR, and again, everybody's doing a great job working with me. On behalf of the Board of Regents, we really appreciate everyone understanding that this is something new and embracing it, and we're all working together. So thank you again for that. There's an example from Dodge City. Thanks, Brandy. So that's just one example. Like Chris said, if your institution, if you want to create something different, you certainly can. Or if you just want to just take out the logo and make it your own for your institution, that's fine too.
Okay. So that's what we have for this morning. I will give everyone a warning because I'm about to unmute you. That way we don't have everyone talking all at once. But here's an opportunity for you guys to ask questions if you have anything on final reporting, or if you have anything on anything else that's happening before we get to our directors meeting in a couple weeks. So, any questions?
Chris, this is Nance, and I have one that's completely not anything to do with this PowerPoint.
That's okay.
I was looking at doing the report, and I opened up the one and it says I can't report on anything because I haven't locked my last quarter.
Yes.
How do I lock my last quarter? I thought we had that locked.
You need to make sure that you're in the right quarter. So you have to go through sequentially, do quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. What quarter were you working on?
I will just look at that because I don't know. So I'll look at it and then I'll just get back with you if I can't figure it out. I was trying to go through and get everything done, and when I went into that, it said you had to lock the last quarter. I thought, oh no, what have I done? So I will check that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So with the follow-up collections, each quarter that you do, you start with the first quarter, you finish that, you upload it. Each quarter informs subsequent quarters. So you have to make sure that you move through sequentially, and that when you were changing from fiscal year 18 to 19 or looking at 17 and back, you have to make sure that you didn't accidentally change the quarter. But if you continue to have issues with that, let me know. I know that we've had a couple people that have been working on their follow-ups. We've had quite a few people lock. But if you have any questions on that, I know it's still a new process and there are a lot of caveats to it. And we're doing it a lot right now because we're playing catch-up for FY17. But when we start into 19, looking at FY18 data, we'll only be doing it once every 3 months. So that it won't be quite as much of a habit then. So, any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Hey, Chris, this is Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Oh, quick question, Chris. This not with the PowerPoint, but with Pablo. With the auto exit, we had a situation yesterday. We keep a running list of when we're supposed to exit them, and we went ahead and coded the student correctly. There is the error, I think it's on the summary page, that says the student is more than 90 days. Go to outcomes. We've of course coded it correctly, but it doesn't auto exit the student, and we obviously can't put a date in there. What's up with that?
Our data team's gonna look at it. I will tell you that you can't. A couple things with this. One, that announcement on the summary page that says greater than 90 days exit, you must exit the student. That's not really an error. That was the initial notification for you guys that there was someone that you needed to exit. Since under WIOA, we now have to wait so long before we go back and enter an exit date for that student. So that might be something that we actually pull out now that we have the auto exit procedure. But when you're looking at 90 days, we've had a couple that it seemed like they didn't auto exit at 90 days, so we're going to look at that. But usually it's just been that the process doesn't run continuously. So we'll double check that one for you, Matt. But the other thing is, we're not expecting that you exit those students the second they hit 90 days. That's why we put the auto exit process in there. That's why part of the new DVC is checking that reason for leaving, so that you can look at your auto exited students and update those. Unfortunately, if you update the exit reason before the student auto exits, it will delete the exit reason when that process runs. So I really appreciate that a lot of you are on top of it and you're trying to go in and do it the day that it happens. But this is probably one of the only times I will tell you you can be a little more lax on that. We'll look at the process. We'll make sure that if there are any kinks that we work those out. But we're not expecting that you get them exited the second they hit 90 days. That's why we put that auto exit procedure in there, to try to take some of that burden off of you. So if you want to look at them every couple weeks, if you want to do that quarterly, that's fine. Yeah, so if you have any questions about that, let me know.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, it's Karen.
Yes.
So I had a question regarding the auto exit as well. One of my teachers gave me a timesheet that was dated I think it was in March, but the auto exit was already there in place, and it wouldn't let me go back into March because the auto exit recognized February as the last date of attendance.
Right. So
how do we deal with that?
So a couple things happen with that hours tab. One, we have 12 months in a fiscal year. So your entry date will cut off part of those months based on what the entry month is for that fiscal year. So if they enter in October, October will be the first month you see. On the back end, it then uses that last date of attendance to cut off the rest of the fiscal year to kind of clean things up a bit. So we figure the auto exit based off of that last date of attendance. If you have hold on just 1 second. If you have overlooked an attendance sheet and someone accidentally gets auto exited, you can't remove the date itself. But it's a multi-step process that I'll send out how to do this. But what you have to do is go to that student's outcomes tab, give them an exit reason, and save. Then remove the exit reason and save again. That will remove the exit date, and then you can go back and change the last date of attendance and enter hours for March.
Okay.
Does that make
All right.
sense?
That does make sense. Thank you.
So I'll send out those steps. I know it happens sometimes. You lose a sheet or whatever, and we're entering data a little later than we would like. So, but that is a way to remove that exit date, since you can't actually go in and delete the date itself.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So, one last thing, we have a call with Octave. It's the second of three state federal monitoring calls before they show up in August, and we have that at 11 o'clock. And I think they keep changing things all around, but I think that we might find out what locals they're going to visit. So if we do find that out today, I'll definitely be reaching out to those. I'll let all the programs know. The other thing that they just changed within the last 30 minutes is the time for an exit interview with me, which now would occur when I scheduled the WIOA partner meeting for Thursday afternoon. So that's going to be some questions I have for him. But as I get more information, I will certainly let all of you know.
October 20th and 26th.
I did.
Okay.
And I think that's all we have. Any other
Yeah.
questions? And we will tell you, we've been working on the schedule for our meeting here in a couple weeks, and so we have a lot of time on there to answer Pablo questions and review those kinds of things you're encountering. But please know we are in the office to answer questions. And Nance, for example, once you figure out if you need further help with that, be sure and give us a shout.
Yep. And one last thing on Pablo. Yesterday we identified there were a couple issues with student rollover. A lot of those were tied to now using that new TABE test box. And there were, levels weren't calculating automatically. There were some test scores that weren't rolling over. Those should all be fixed now. And our data team has gone in and they should have filled in any gaps in data that didn't roll over. But if you guys, we've made a lot of changes with tests and things like that. So if something's not quite right and you don't think that data is rolled over that should have or would have in the past, let us know. That way we can take care of it before we get too deep into the fiscal year. So far we've been able to take care of everything on the back end so that we don't have to have you guys go back and roll students over again. We'd like to avoid that. But if there are things that aren't quite right, please let us know, because we want Pablo to function correctly. And we want those automatic things that are in there to help you guys out to work so that you guys don't have a higher workload than you already do.
Hey, Chris, I've got one more Pablo question. This is Karen.
Yes.
Okay, so when a student enters going from Pop 1 to Pop 2, okay, so they've been out for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that in Pablo, the new you have to save the enrollment tab and all that. Okay, do we carry over the test scores from Pop 1 to Pop 2 as well as the goals?
You can. So they're the goals you can do whatever you want with.
Okay.
You can set those up however you want because the goals do not affect performance data.
Right.
So with those, you can it's an opportunity for you guys. Goal setting in Pablo now is more or less just for you guys to be able to track goal setting in Pablo if you wish. So that's an opportunity for you to update those. With test scores, there are things, we can go over this at the directors meeting again as well. There are things we are allowed to do with test scores now that are kind of prohibitive when we're looking at POPs for doing this automatically. So when a student's been gone for a period of time, let's say you had a student attend and they had 40 hours when they left and they never were post-tested. When they come back, you could give them a new test, use those test scores as a post-test for POP 1, and also use those test scores as a pre-test for POP 2. Alternatively, if the student didn't have the hours, you could copy those over as the POP 1 scores as a pre-test for POP 2, or depending on how many hours the student had, if they had 30 hours when they left, you could wait 10 instructional hours to post-test them and then use those as post-tests for POP 1 and pre-tests for POP 2, trying to make sure that we get measurable skill gains in each period of participation.
Got it. Okay.
I know that's kind of confusing because we have so much flexibility. You can put the test scores wherever you want, whatever's best for where the student is at instructionally.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Sue Gross-Didier has something for you guys.
Just wanted to tell you, I will be out next week at the GED National Conference. So if you're sending in compulsory paperwork, it'll be the next week. So just kind of FYI, I wanted you to make sure you knew that. And also just kind of a reminder, when you come to the meeting, the end of July, some of you have said you have found some old records. Please bring those with you, GED testing scores, that type of thing. Please bring those with you because we are in this big project of getting everything scanned and entered. And I am going through every single record to make sure that it is in parchment. So it's really important that if you do find those, that you bring them with you. And that's it.
Any other questions? All right. Well, if that's it, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you guys taking the time. As always, if you have any other questions, let us know, call, email, and we will get back to you guys as soon as we can. But if that's it, we will see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.